Hello, I'm Jane Vennard, and I've been a spiritual director for 25 years. I love the ministry. I am constantly pleased and surprised by the people who come and trust their stories with me. I think for me, spiritual direction is about companioning, walking with. And one of the images that I like to use is that I, as the spiritual director, am the lamp holder. And so as we walk together, I don't walk in front necessarily or behind, I walk with, but my task is to shine the light on the path. And sometimes it's a really soft lamp, and sometimes it's a spotlight, and sometimes we're sometimes both walking in the dark, but I'm the lamp holder is the way I see my role as a spiritual director. To come to spiritual direction, you don't need to know anything except that you want to come. That's the most important thing. It's that longing of the heart. And I've had people come and say, I have no idea why I'm here. I heard about spiritual direction and it seemed like just what I needed, but I don't know anything. I don't even know if I'm on a journey. I don't belong to a church. I don't pray. But the important thing for me is that longing to be in dialogue with somebody else around meaning, around possibilities, around one's life in the spirit, whatever that means. And so you don't need to know anything. In fact, in some ways, that's often the best way to come. In Buddhist thought, you come with a beginner's mind. And to come into anything with a beginner's mind leads us to open to explore whatever begins to show up. Any content of one's life is part of the spiritual direction process and companioning, that a lot of times we do focus on prayer and meditation. And for me, in my own prayer life, but also as I work with directees, to have somebody that you can report back to and ask questions of and express your frustration and all of those things that come up with a prayer practice. It also, for me, is since I know I'm going to see my spiritual director every month, and I know she's going to ask me how my prayer life is, it keeps me praying. And it keeps me looking for new ways. And if I get stuck, she's very gentle and will say, well, maybe there's another way. Have you tried this way of prayer? So there's a teaching element to it as well as a companionship. And I think sometimes people don't realize that spiritual direction has a teaching component. And I remember one whole session where somebody came to me and she said, what's the difference between prayer and meditation? And that's what we talked about for a whole hour, how some people view it one way and others, and she began to sort out for her what was prayer and what was meditation and what it was she wanted to pursue. There are a lot of issues that come into spiritual direction. Very often they're relationship issues, not only relationship with God, but relationship with children, with parents, with spouses. So that the relationship question and issue is something that I bring often into my spiritual direction and people bring to me. It's not addressed as a therapeutic issue or how to resolve conflict so much, but those issues with other people are at the heart of our spiritual life, our connection. So relationship issues are very often brought in. Other issues I find that, again, I bring and other people bring are issues of discernment. At times of change, of times of dissatisfaction with a job, the question of, am I being called to another city? People who are wondering about whether they want to have children. Those questions, the big questions of life, are often brought into spiritual direction, so we can look at and examine the question, but also the underlying longings of the spirit to help us know what might be next. It's not the questions that I bring and that people bring to me, we're not looking for the answer, although sometimes we are. But in spiritual direction, it's more an exploration of what's underlying the call, the longings in different places. And sometimes spiritual direction is all about celebration, about gratefulness. Somebody said to me once, you know, I don't have any problems today. I wonder if I should be here for this hour. And that, I think there's a thinking sometimes that I have to have a struggle, or I have to bring my director something difficult, or I'm in pain. And yet it's wonderful when somebody comes in and says, you know what? My life is working right now. And then we can explore that, celebrate that together. One time I went into direction and I said, I really have nothing. And so I want you as the director, I asked her, I said, would you tell me just some things you've seen over these last 7 or 8 years that we've been working together? Do you see any patterns? And it was just wonderful because she pointed out some things that I hadn't even thought about. So, as I've said, as I think is clear, is that any part of our life is welcome in spiritual direction. It's what's up for us. And sometimes people will say to me, you know, this doesn't seem very important, but, and then they'll talk about their son's bedwetting. Well, it is important. It's important in their relationship, it's important in their thinking, their family life. So it can be a huge issue like illness or end of relationship or major job loss, or it can be what's seen as small things, but the ordinary is a rich place in spiritual direction. What I'd like to say to you is open your heart. Open your heart to the wonder of the world.